Peace, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of my hip hop review. This is your boy Red here, and the album I'm about to do today is Gangstar's No More Mr. Nice Guy. This album was released in 1989 on Wild Pitch Records. Okay, so before I start this review, I have a few announcements I want to make. Um, Gangstar, has been I mentioned Gangstar a couple of times on this channel. I've already touched upon Hard to Earn and Moment of Truth. But looking back at those reviews, those were like when I really started out. I think I did those reviews possibly early 2014. And certain reviews I've rewatched over the years, I've kind of like cringed at them. So, with more years of experience and, with my appreciation for Gangstar growing every year and whatnot, I decided I'm just going to touch upon all of their albums, a few affiliate albums like I usually do, as an icebreaker, and just, do more justice to them than I've done over the years and stuff, as I've done in that time and stuff like that. Um, and with that being said, this is actually the only album from Gangstar that I actually do not own, surprisingly, and stuff like that. So that's why I showed you guys that, and yeah. Okay, so I've mentioned who Gangstar are, but just in case you need to realize, the members consist of Guru and DJ Premier. Um, you know, Gangstar, they're just a duo I just hold in a very high regard and stuff like that. Possibly one of the most, influential East Coast, not just East Coast hip hop, like one of the most influential hip hop duos groups of all time. I mean, thought provoking lyrics, hard boom bap beats and whatnot, Rest in peace, Guru. Rest in peace to Guru, man. Like, a fucking loss right there. And DJ Premier, man, to this day, one of my favorite producers in hip hop, in my opinion. He does, irritate me in some of his recent works and whatnot, but, um, yeah, sorry about that. But, I've always have love for DJ Premier and whatnot, so. But what a lot of people might not know, that this influential hip hop duo, you might be surprised, but they're not from. Both members are not from New York, and the group did not. The group originally started, but it did not start as you might. It didn't start as you would thought it started. So let me explain. So Guru, he was born in in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and DJ Premier was born in Houston, Texas. So Guru, he had gotten a degree in business administration, and from when I looked up, he was working as a counselor in a detention home in Boston or whatnot. And so he had formed Gangstar, but way before DJ Premier joined, and that consisted of members like it consisted of Guru and this DJ that goes by DJ 12 Be Down, but they've had help from like various producers such as Donald D, who I've recently touched upon the Notorious album and whatnot. Very dope album, very slept on and stuff like that. JV Johnson and the 45 King. More on him later on and shit like that. Mention him again, another producer who worked with, Queen Latifah. He worked with MC Light. He worked with Eminem, Jay-Z, the list goes on and on. Chill Rob G, you know. And so they cut out a few demos between like 86 to 87. Some of the known ones were like The Lesson and Bust a Move and shit. And they were like mostly like local hits and stuff. And then DJ Premier, he's from Texas, and he was in college and he left his demo. He had like a lot of demos he did with various labels and shit like that. And so while he was in Texas, he put together this posse called the Inner City Posse. And so they had a demo that got some attention, and Primo got like a record deal at Wild Pitch Records and stuff like that. And you know it's crazy because they liked Primo, but they didn't like the rapper that was rapping and shit like that. So Guru, who had already, I think Guru, who was already, getting attention from Wild Pitch Records at that time too, label put both of them in touch and whatnot, and that's how they really got back together. Like they really got together and shit. So I believe what had happened was like Primo had to return to college back in Texas and stuff, and so mostly how they would like record and whatnot, they would mostly been recording over the phone, just sending each other tapes and stuff. So that's pretty much how their partnership. That was pretty much how their partnership came about. And so fast forward to 1989, they had officially dropped their first single, "Words I Manifest." More on that later. And so what's interesting is that they completed the album Normal Mr. Nice Guy while Primo was on vacation and shit. So they did that in about 10 days. That's crazy as hell, but yeah. So that's Normal Mr. Nice Guy. That was released in 1989. Um yeah, singles albums known for are only came out with okay, the official single is Positivity, but it came out with the Manifest remix and the Positivity remix and shit. Um, yeah, that's crazy. And what's interesting too is, in the 2001 reissue of Normal Mr. Nice Guy, they added the earlier Gangstar tracks like The Lesson and Believe That was under the original name and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. But yeah. All right, so OG Copy has 14 songs. Let's get this shit started. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. One thing you might notice about this album compared to the latter Gangstar albums are the fact that this was pretty much the only Gangstar album where they had like outside producers, and usually come on man, really? Okay, I'm sorry about that. My stupid webcam wants to fuck up just when I'm filming something, but okay. Um, Usually Primo was the one that's supplying some of the most of the beats and whatnot, so he has some help from Guru and the 45 King. And it's kind of crazy too, because Guru, he does beats as well. He mostly put one of his best known productions was when he produced what's it called, Bahamadia's that Rex song and shit like that off the Collage album, which that's another album I potentially might do a re-review, but I'm gonna re-review that album if I get my hands on that album because I have a feeling I'll get that album pretty soon. I have a very strong feeling because, for one, I think that album kind of went down in price a little bit, and I do have a burn copy of it, but I don't really mess with burn CDs like that no more and shit. So I was kind of like, fuck it. If it's not real, then fuck it. That's all I say. Um, so yeah, and I'm gonna talk more about that once this fucking album's done, review is done. So H2O is good for y'all. Okay. So 14 songs. Let's get this shit started. Track number one we got is Premier and the Guru. Pretty straightforward song, pretty solid song. Just them kind of nice little introduction, nice little introduction that they've done and stuff like that. So yeah, that's very dope. Track number two is Jazz Music. That song is not okay. So this is the very different version from what you guys are used to, and I'm gonna talk about that. So the original version of Jazz Music, this was far different than the one you guys are known for because um in this version they're not really paying a lot of they pay homage to jazz, but they paying homage to their grandfathers. both Premier and Guru for putting them onto jazz music and shit like that, you know. And it's kind of interesting too because from what I looked up on this album, I mean for this album and whatnot, Spike Lee was a huge fan of, he was a huge fan of the group because once he saw the Manifest video, he bought No More Mr. Nice Guy. And so he actually contacted Gangstar after he heard the track Jazz Music. He said he liked what they're doing and whatnot, but then he wanted them to like redo jazz music for the Mo Better Blues movie. Which let me tell y'all some Mo Better Blues. That's a fucking dope ass movie. One of Spike Lee's best movies, in my opinion. If you guys like love jazz music, you will love that movie. Like dead ass and shit. So yeah, that's very dope story and shit. Because I kid you not, when I heard this song, when I heard this album for the first time, I was very disappointed. Like I was very disappointed by this song and shit because I expected the remix and shit, you know. But over the years, I do like this version, but the More Better Blues version, oh my fucking god, that shit's all over this version and shit. And it's kind of interesting too. I think now is like the perfect time to say that with this album, they were pretty much the first rap. I want to say like really like the first rappers or the first rap group to really have jazz samples throughout the whole album. Because don't get me wrong, you had other people like you had the Native Tongues, but you had the Native Tongues of course, and who else was doing jazz samples? Yeah, pretty much they kind of did a little few jazz samples, but at the same time it was like a lot of people were still used to doing the James Brown samples a lot in their music, or just any kind of funky samples like the substitution, the Melvin Bliss sample everyone knows and shit. And so with this album, it kind of like was different because it expanded a lot of people's horizons and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Just like how, in a way, EPMD Strictly Business, they were very unorthodox with the sampling choices, and even with De La Soul's 3 Feet High and Rising, I would even mention, Gangstar's No More Mr. Nice Guy in that same circle and shit. But I'm getting way ahead of myself at the moment. Um, got the next track we got is called Got You. Oh, that song is so ill and shit. That beat was fire as fuck. I do like the beat and shit. Yeah, that song's pretty ill. Oh, okay. Track number 4, Manifest. This is the OG version, not the remix and shit. Um, this is like really pretty much one of the best early Gangstar classics and stuff like that. Um, of course, I do prefer the remix. A lot of people do prefer the remix and shit, but the original version is not too far off. I love when he says the lines, I suggest you take a breath for the words I manifest. They will scold you and mold you while I impress upon you the fact that I use my tact at rhyming, cold climbing, and chill where I attract that girl you're with. I got sincere quality. I give her all of me cause you're too small to be trying to riff, so let me uplift and shift my gift. Let's go to the fullest capacity. Like he went in on that fucking verse and shit. Yeah, very dope. Very good dope usage of the Charlie Parker sample and stuff. Very dope usage of that. Next track is Gusto. Um, yeah, man, that's one of the two beats that 45 King produced. Um, Lyrically, the song is good lyrically, but the beat, I don't dislike the beat, but it sounds like a mixture of something that would have fit with Queen Latifah's All Hail the Queen and some of the beat experimentations of Kool G Rap and DJ Polo's Road to the Riches and shit. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, that's a pretty alright song and shit. Um, then we get to DJ Premier in Deep Concentration. Now, I have to say this. I'm not really too big on a lot of DJ tracks when it comes to a lot of early hip hop albums and stuff, But whenever I have to give a slight exception to this one, and this is like really one of my top two songs on this album and shit. And I don't know what it is about this track, but the way he flipped that Summer Madness sample and stuff like that, oh my fucking god, man! Like, yeah, like that song right there is pretty ill. That's a pretty ill song and shit. Yeah, and I know a lot of producers have flipped Summer Madness over the years, but yeah, that he just scratching the way he was scratching and shit like that. He probably was one of the first cats to actually use that sample. I might be wrong on that. And yeah, this is way before DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince with "Summertime" off the Home Base album, which is a pretty alright album and shit. Excuse me. All right, then we got to Positivity Remix. Okay, personally, I don't like when they sequence remixes before the original version and stuff like that, but I'll let it slide. Um, this is of course a dope remix and stuff like that. It's just them spreading positivity throughout their music and stuff. So yeah, that's one thing I got from that song. Um, yeah, the beat's pretty fly, pretty fresh for '89. You know what I'm saying? Then we got from one remix to another. We got the words I manifest. Again, pretty ill song and shit. Little story and shit. So they did the original version, and the original version got like a lot of love. That the next year they remixed it. They sped it up a little bit, added a better drum pattern and stuff. Primo was still trying to find his style, but it was songs like Words I Meant Effects remix and the Positivity remix. Just a little. He just a little gateway and shit like that. He was still trying to find his style. Yeah, Guru definitely did his thing on that song and shit. Let me see some lyrics he says. Let me see some lyrics. Yeah, some of my favorite shits he was saying was like, I profess that I don't just seize my words, I manifest. They will take you, sedate you, and I will stress upon you the need for you all to feed for mind and soul so you can lend yourself to keep. I got a real objective here. I am effective here because I select a clear message to all suckers. I'm moral they fall from into the pit of purgatory. Like, man, like they just sounded so focused when it came to like the remixes and certain songs and shit like that. I'm definitely gonna talk more after the review is over and shit like that. Okay. Track number 9, Conscious Be Free. Um I I like how melodic the beat was and shit like that. Other than that, I really was not really too big on that song. Then we got Cause and Effect. Again, it's a pretty straight song, but yeah, it didn't really do that much for me. Two Steps Ahead, that was a pretty weird song, because excuse me, like it was an ill ass song, but the way Google was rapping and shit like that, it sounded like you can tell he was influenced by Ultramagnetic MCs, especially the way like Cool Keith was rapping and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting and whatnot. Yeah, that's a very cool song. It's a very cool. Next track, No More Mr. Nice Guy. Next to DJ Premier and Deep Concentration. This is my favorite song off the album and whatnot. Yeah, just like Guru at his best and when it came to this shit. When he's doing like straightforward songs, when he's mad and stuff like that. That's one thing I like about Guru and shit. Um, I like when he says He's as I speak, you girlies yell to your friends, yo, it's him. He's shocking again. This is the season for breezing with reason. Because I'm in charge of the attack on suckers who just rap on a whack track that lack that snap while I just mac on honeys who look good and all they want the wood and they push up it to get up close to serve a pudding serve me pudding. Man, fucking Guru, man. Like, fucking Guru. That's all I gotta say about that. Next track, Knowledge. Um, featuring Damo D Ski. Although it's not credited, it's not really mentioned in the liner notes and stuff like that. This song right here was the last song that 45 King produced, and yeah, I fucking love this song, man. Like, I don't know too much about Damo D Sky besides him working with Guru, but they both had like two verses each. Yeah, they both definitely did their thing on that song. He kind of Damo kind of reminds me of an Americanized Dana Dane a little bit, just that style wise. I don't know if it's just me, but yeah. Track number 14, Positivity. Um, yeah, I prefer the remix on that song to be real, but yeah, I still feel like it's a solid song. And that's all the songs off this album. My honest opinion about this album, it's not a classic album. I would not call this album a classic, but I feel like it gets kind of slept on when it comes to like a lot of fans, of Gangstar because whenever they want to think of Gangstar, they always talk about, daily operation, hard to earn, moment of truth. Um, hell, even Step in Arena sometimes don't get a lot of shine and stuff like that. And they even talk about the owners too. But when it comes to No More Mr. Nice Guy, I always felt like that's like one of the most important albums because of the fact that they really were mastering jazz samples and whatnot. And it kind of went under the radar. When this album was released, it mostly kind of went under the radar because, like I mentioned before, they were like the late 80s where everybody was using James Brown samples, majority of the time and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why it really fell under the radar. But I would give this album a chance. I'll give this album a chance. Yeah, I would even go as far as saying it's like their weakest album. But when I say the word weak, in this case, don't take it the harsh way, because they were still trying to find their sound with this album and whatnot. So yeah, this album, this album is definitely gonna come soon. If I definitely have time this week, I'm gonna review this album. But yeah. So this album, No More Mr. Nutski, might be a bit too hard to come by these days. The last known reissue came in 2008. 2008. So if y'all can find this album, you must have in your collection. And that's all the time I have. Stay tuned for more. And also, this upcoming Sunday, man, Strawberry and I are going to talk about Jay-Z's American Gangster. Must watch. You cannot miss this one. And I hope you guys have a very good day. Peace.